Rev up your engines!
Do you ever wonder if you're getting gypped at the gas pump? Maybe you're not getting a gallon for every gallon you pay for? Well, in Massachusetts, the government there just did 75 surprise inspections of gas stations to see, and they put out some fines for people who were cheating, who didn't have the pump set right. Now, I knew that when I was a kid, because there was one station down the street that was cheaper than everybody else. Now, gas is cheap enough then anyways, but they were charging like 39 cents a gallon when other people were charging like 45, right? I thought, well, it's kind of a sleazy station. It was not even cement, just dirt, and people were all there because it was cheaper. I got a graduated cylinder, and I pumped exactly 1 gallon, and lo and behold, that thing was only giving you 90% of a gallon. It wasn't giving you a whole 100% of a gallon. That's one of the reasons they had their prices lower. Yeah. Back in those days, there weren't that many people checking stuff out, so it's probably a good idea that people check this thing every once in a while because, hey, how do you know what you're getting when you buy gas at the pump? The average price of unleaded in the Boston area is $4.24. So they're not giving the stuff away, right? They're cheating you of it. They need to do more of these inspections. And they caught some of them, had to give them fines, and they had to reset their stuff. How about giving the people their money back? That's what I say. Like a lot of these, well, they took it to court and they fined them millions of dollars. Yeah, where does the money go? It generally doesn't go to the people who paid for it. It usually goes to the government, or as you find out later, a lot of times the fines are never even actually paid, that they go to court again and then they try to not pay at all. It's absolutely insane, the stuff that goes out with what is actually paid. I've seen fines that companies got of $400 million. Then they ended up settling later for like $6 million instead. So, you never know. It's a good thing. They need to check more things like this, so you're not being cheated. They need to check the scales in the grocery stores too, because I remember they had that thing with Whole Foods a while back, a few years ago, where they were cheating on their scales and they weren't working right, and they were putting their fingers on the scale and stuff. So you got to watch people. What is it with electric cars and starting on fire? Mercedes-Benz just recalled its EQS models over fire risks. Those are electric cars. In this case, they're saying it's loose wiring connectors that can start a fire. Here's the thing about electricity. It's got to have a clean path. So you want like thick copper wires, nice clean path. Every time there's a connector where it connects one to the other. That's a weak point. If the connector isn't perfect, it'll heat up, and yes, it can start a fire. This is one of the reasons that higher voltage electricity really was never that popular with cars. 12-volt system, right? About a decade and a half ago, all the car magazines, all the engineers were saying, yeah, forget 12 volts. Cars are going to be 48 volts. It works more. It's more efficient, blah, blah, blah. The wiring has to be made much stronger. The connectors have to be much better because they're handling higher voltage. And yes, if there's too much of a restriction, it'll heat up and cause a fire. Guess what? 48 volts did not become the acceptable voltage for cars. And then they realized, oh, gee, not only does the wiring have to be thicker and cost more to make, but all the switches and all the relays have to be super strong too to handle that extra power. The more power you use, the stronger your electronics have to be. And of course, as we all know, in our materialistic capitalist society, they want to try to make things as cheap as possible so they can make a higher profit. Well, Mercedes finding now they got a problem with their stupid electric cars starting on fire. Now, in the case of the Mercedes, there's improperly secured auxiliary heater connection. The front left longitudinal member of the entire car, the connectors there, they might not be on correctly. Who knows what the truth is? Probably they made it wrong and they got to replace stuff, but they don't want to admit that. So, they're just loose. Come on now, come on, just loose, right? Obviously, they weren't made right, and they're probably coming loose because they weren't made right. Now let's replace the connectors. Mercedes-Benz calls their 2022 EQS the future of electric luxury today. Well, I guess the future includes starting on fire like all the other electric cars. I still would love to know if that big ship that was full of the Volkswagen products sank in the Atlantic Ocean. It was on the way to Rhode Island, right? If it started because of an electric car fire, I'm assuming it did, but now it's 2 miles down in the ocean, so no one's ever going to figure that one out probably. You can't make them cheaper. You'll have problems. If Mercedes-Benz, the supposed high-tech company, can't make them correct, there's not that much hope for these cheap companies making them either. Well, here's one for you. Elon Musk just tweeted that the Russian war means that we need more oil now. To quote him, I have to agree with him. He says, I hate to say it, but we need to increase oil and gas output immediately. I mean, at least it shows that he is pragmatic sometimes. And he's saying, yeah, we're using the stuff. We need more of it ourselves so we don't have to depend on these clowns over there. Only about 6% of the oil that we import every year comes from Russia. 6%. So it's really not that big of a deal. All the ramifications, how everything in the world today is economically tied to everything else. And of course, it's all done on stock markets where people bet this is going to go up, is it going to go down? Already the price of gasoline is sky high in the United States just on rumors of stuff. It's kind of a nutty system. I mean, you got to face it. People bet on the price of something. You can even bet on the value of money, a country's money. You're just basically trading money for money. Kind of absurd sounding, but it's true. People have made and lost fortunes betting on currency. And the same basic thing goes with oil. People bet, is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? So even though we only get that small percentage of oil from there, it's made the price go bananas because, well, the market starts going wild and then the oil companies just see, hey, we can charge whatever we want now. Who's going to stop us, right? And then you get politicians say, oh, we're going to stop that. Well, they don't have any control over that stuff. It's just hot air coming out of their mouths as usual. But I got to agree with Elon here. You know, we should be more dependent on ourselves. But it's only 6% that comes from Russia anyways. You know, it's not that much. Pete from Boston says, should I purchase an ex-postal van? I'm looking at a low-mileage Dodge CV Tradesman mini cargo van with 37,000 miles. It was a postal van, and they want $58.88. One, I would never buy an ex-postal van. I know guys who worked at the post office in Houston. Their maintenance on their stuff is garbage, and they generally beat the heck out of them. I talk to postmen all the time, and I laugh. It's like, where'd that ding come from? He said, oh, I ran into something the other day, but no, I just said, what was that way when I got here? Because they share vans. Different drivers drive the van. It's just one guy in one van. They move all around. They get the heck beat out of them. No, I would not buy an ex-postal, especially at $5,800. It might be worth nothing, you know? Why do you think the post office got rid of it? Because it was probably starting to fall apart. I'm not a fan of buying used anything that was any type of businesses that don't maintain the stuff, including buying rental cars. One, they don't maintain them that well, but as a rental car, you got all these different people driving them. Like when I rent a car, I used to rent them a lot because I fly around, but now I drive, so I use my own cars, and I'm happier that way. Half the time, they don't even change the oil in them. I've had them where maintenance, they're low on oil. I always check it because I'm a mechanic when I rent a car. And so they know, oh, wow, it's low on oil, so I'll go buy a quart of oil. I don't want the engine blowing up while I'm driving around, you know? So no, I would not buy an ex-postal van. PT says, Scotty, should I trade my 2017 Pathfinders paid off with 50,000 miles for a Toyota Highlander? If you can do an even deal, yes, the Highlander is much better made, but I doubt it is the Nissan versus the Toyota. The Highlanders are one of the best vehicles they make. If you can get any kind of a close deal, do it now. You could drive the Highlander forever. The Pathfinder, I've seen some of them 120, 130, 40, but then they start falling apart. The Highlanders, I've seen them 350, 360, and they're still running good. So if you can get a decent deal, not lose too much money, go right ahead and do it now. Well, you'll get a lot of money for the stupid Nissan. Guy down the street here, he just sold the Nissan Maxima. He got $14,000 for that vehicle, and the thing was like 7 years old. They paid $22 when it was new. So he got rid of it. But he's leaving the country, so he doesn't care. He doesn't have to buy anything else here now. Henry Rothman said, Scotty, how often should I get my car washed in the winter at the roadside? I live in Michigan. 2014 Buick LaCrosse with 60,000 miles. Personally, I'd do it at least once a week. Now, the problem is you're in Michigan. Do they have heated car washes? If they do, do it, and then it'll get it all off. But if it's freezing outside, it isn't going to do you any good. It starts eating stuff up, and the more you rinse it off, the better. If you got a heated garage at your house, hey, get a pressure washer, do it yourself. You can get those cool rolling ones that come on a wheel and you roll under the car and pressure wash, and they'll get all the salt off, and you don't even have to crawl under the car. Doobie says, Scotty, what do you recommend for a vehicle that's driven 2 or 3 times a month? I'd recommend selling it. If you're only driving it 2 or 3 times a month, what's the point of having a car? Uber where you're going, you know? Well, if you have one, and that's all you're going to do. When you do drive it at least half an hour and get it on highway speeds to get it going. You probably would want to buy a trickle charger too, to trickle charge the battery while it sits, because it's losing electricity, not driving it enough too. You want to keep air in the tires. You still want to change the oil at least once a year, even if you don't drive it, so that everything doesn't build up on it and it won't corrode the engine. You're not putting any miles on it, so you don't have to worry about stuff wearing out, but you do have to worry about the battery draining, and the oil has to be changed once a year anyway. Dark 487 says, I got an 02 Dodge Intrepid's been sitting outside 5 years. The engine overheated 4 times because the radiator fan stopped working. Would it be worth trying to fix it up? Probably not. If it overheated 4 times, it's probably ruined the engine, and it's sat for 4 years, it's going to be rusting. The engine might even be locked up, and basically those Dodge Intrepids were positive crap anyway. I would pass on that. Unless you want a long-term project car for fixing it up, I wouldn't waste my time. When engines are overheated, you're willing to take the engine apart and rebuild it on that old clunker? Car's not worth anything. Car's worth maybe $500. I wouldn't even bother. I would just send it to the junkyard. I wouldn't go any further on that. It's been sitting there for 5 years. It's not going to fix itself sitting there. It's only going to get worse. Sometimes the pistons, they'll rust in, and the engine's locked up, and you got to rebuild the whole engine. No, I'd pass on that one if I were you. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.